After rescuing her niece from a sorcerer attempting to resurrect his dead wife, our botanist hero heads off to check back in on that magical panacea plant from the first game. Her brother has found the perfect place for it to bloom, which, unfortunately, has attracted the attention of the Cloud King, a magical blue-skinned man with a nefarious plan in mind for all of the surface dwellers, who have been polluting his beloved skies with smog for like 200 years at this point. Seriously, it's weird that he's taken this long to kick up a fuss. Now, the hidden object criteria. It's a bit of a mix this time, although it's weighed heavily towards plausibility. There are 16 hidden object scenes, and most of them are extremely well drawn, if a little more difficult than I'm used to. The plant gathering sequences look especially good, with believably overgrown patches of earth producing a wide variety of plants. Most of the other screens are quite plausible as well. Discarded pieces of armor around the feet of an ancient statue, the random artifacts brought to a nest by murderous insect lizards. There's some fairly rough ones as well though, with nonsensical objects placed randomly around screens, as well as some size cheating, and even a couple of repeated items that appear in multiple screens. There are far more good screens than bad ones, but there are a couple of bad ones. The developers have put in a good effort this time. There are a few assembly screens and a bunch of plant gathering sequences, all of which make perfect sense within the story. The rest of the screens are 12:1 though, and while most of them are well designed, it's a little annoying that they weren't able to make all of the screens justified. I will say that while the hidden object scenes were more difficult than usual, they weren't unfair in any meaningful way. The hidden items could all be found in relatively logical ways, and where colors were changed, it was always due to obvious light sources. This is a good title to challenge anyone who finds standard hidden object scenes a little too easy. It's a decent story this time, although it's undercut by a plot twist and lack of care given to the villain's point of view. Early in the game, the player is asked to find a magical item to help stave off disaster, but then it turns out the item was actually needed to cause the impending cataclysm. This proves something of a head-scratcher. If it was the villain's magic item in the first place, why did he need the heroine to find it? Is he just lazy? More importantly though, the game's villain has a pretty fair complaint. Human industrial pollution is destroying his cloud kingdom and poisoning the magical creatures who live there. His response, wipe out humanity in a biblical flood, is probably a little over the top, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't be taken seriously. Despite this, the game treats him as a fairly standard villain who needs to be stopped, and the game ends without addressing the fairly key pollution is killing the Sky Kingdom plot point. From moment to moment, it's a thrilling adventure game with plenty of gorgeous locations. It just doesn't come together as a satisfying whole. I played the early beta for this game, and in it, John was not the main character's brother, but rather a friend of hers from college. I'm not exactly sure why this change was made, since it serves to make the storyline a little more contrived. So, she stumbles into all of these adventures involving Slavic mythology, and also she's part of a special bloodline of magic users? That seems like a stretch to me. There isn't one, so no. Eventide 3 is clearly up to the visual standards of the rest of the series, and the puzzles are all great, but from a story standpoint this is the weakest entry in the series. With a less sympathetic villain or a different scheme, it might have been easier to get on board with the game. But as it is, I was left a little disappointed as the credits rolled. More importantly, the game leaves a fairly huge question unanswered. If this is the botanist's brother, does that make the niece from the previous game his daughter? Or are there other siblings in the family? Because if that was his daughter, then the game's ending has a very different feel to it. I'm not going to spoil it though. The curious will just have to play it for themselves. This review is based on a copy of the game provided by the publisher. If you'd like to watch the playthrough which led to this review, swing by the Hidden Object Guru YouTube channel. See you back here for the next review, but until then, au revoir.